Hey guys, R4GE VipeRzZ here, and today I'm going to show you how you can auto-transcribe audio files on your PC locally. Now we're going to be using OpenAI's Whisper and using a web GUI with it so that it is easier to use. Now all of the processing will be done locally, and if you have something like an NVIDIA GPU it should be able to do it faster, but if you don't have anything like that and it's just a machine with a CPU in, it should still work, it will just be slower. Now this machine that I'm on doesn't have any dedicated graphics card, it is just going to run off the CPU. So again, if you have a dedicated GPU, especially if it's an NVIDIA one, you should be able to make this go faster, but it should also work on a system with just a CPU. So if I open Chrome up, this is the GitHub for the Whisper GUI that we're going to be installing. So this basically uses OpenAI's Whisper and then creates a GUI within the web browser of a page that is running locally on your machine to make it easier to use. Now if you do have an NVIDIA GPU installed, you want to install the CUDA toolkit, and there will also be another command you would need to run if you want to try and use it with your NVIDIA GPU to accelerate it. But like I say, I don't have that on my machine, so I'm just going to close this tab down. So what we're going to need is we're going to need Git, Python, ffmpeg, and then miniconda. So if we first start out by installing Git, so if we come to Git and we download the 64-bit version as I'm on Windows 11, and for doing these installs, some of them are going to require administrator permissions, so you want to be on an account that has administrator permissions. So if I open the installer up and we say yes to that, and then we just go through and keep all of the default options selected, and now we will let it install. And there we go, it's now finished, so I will just uncheck the view release notes and click finish, and we will just check that it is installed. So if we come to start and we do cmd, and then we open the command prompt up and we type git space -- version and then press enter. As you can see, it successfully ran the git version command and shows that this is the current version that we have installed. So now I can close the git page down and we will now install Python. So I will download Python 3.13.2 and then I will run the installer. Now we want to make sure we have both of these bottom boxes selected, and then we want to click install now. Then we will click yes. And now that setup has finished, we're also going to click the disable path length limit option here, and we will say yes to that, and we can now click close. So now if we come back to search again and we open command prompt up again, and this time we do Python -- version and press enter. As you can see, Python has successfully installed, and whilst we're here we will also check the Python pip install version. So if we do pip space install and then press enter, as you can see, it's saying there is a new release of pip available. If it doesn't say there's a new release available, then you don't need to do this, but we will just copy this section here, so from where it says Python all the way to the end of pip. So if we just do Control-C to copy that, and then Control-V to paste the command, and then we run the command, that will then just update the pip installer. And there we go, that's now successfully installed, so that is that updated. So now we can close that down, and we can close down the Python page. Now on ffmpeg, we now need to download that. So if we click download, and then we come to the Windows button here, and then we click the Windows builds from Guy and Dev. And then on this page, if we scroll down to the release build section, and then I'm just going to select ffmpeg release essential.zip, and we will now let that download. And now that zip file is downloaded, I will just go to my downloads, and then I will come inside, and I will just extract the folder out, and then I can get rid of the zip file, and then if I come inside of the extracted file, we just need to copy the bin folder. So I've selected the bin folder and then done Control-C to copy. And now we want to come to this PC, then C, and then we want to create ourselves a new folder. So if we right click and do new, and then folder, and we're going to call it ffmpeg. And then press enter, and then we're going to go into the ffmpeg folder, and we're now going to paste the bin folder that we copied. And there we go, so now we're going to go into the bin folder, and now we need to copy this directory location. So if we just click into it like so, and then just select and copy the directory location, we now need to add ffmpeg as a environment variable. So if we come to start, and then settings, and then system, and then scroll down to the bottom and then click about, and then in about, if we then click the advanced system settings option, then on the advanced tab, we then want to click the environment variables button down here, and then under the system variable section, we then want to click on the path variable option, and we then want to click edit. Then we want to do new, and we then just want to paste the ffmpeg bin directory location like so. So there we go, that's our ffmpeg bin directory location added there, and we can now click OK. So now we've done that, we can now close down our ffmpeg tab, and we now need to install Miniconda. So if we click the download link here, and then we can click skip registration, and then we don't want this first one here, we want to scroll down to Miniconda, and then we want to select the 64-bit graphical installer down here. So now that's downloaded, we will now just run the installer, and then we will click next, then we will agree, and now at this part here where it says installed for, we're going to select all users, and then click next, then we will select yes, then we will leave it on the default location, so that is in program data and then creating itself its own folder. So if we now click next, then install, and we let it now install. And now that's completed, we can now click next, and then we will just uncheck those two boxes and then click finish. So now that's done, we can close down these two tabs, and we now need to add a few more system variables. So if we come back to our File Explorer again and come to this PC, then the C drive, and then click in the top bar, and after the backslash we're going to type program data like so, and then press enter. As you can see in this directory we now have this Miniconda 3 folder. So if we go inside of the folder, and we then want to copy the directory location, and now we've copied that directory location, we're going to come back to our environment variables again, and we're going to come back to path again, and we will click edit, and then again we're going to do new, and we will paste the directory location, and then we will come back to our File Explorer, and we then want to go inside of library, then bin, and we want to copy this directory location. Then we want to come back to here again, and we want to do another new one, and we want to paste that in like so. And then we just need to get the third directory, so if we come back here again and we come back to Miniconda 3, and then instead if we come inside of the scripts folder, and we then copy the directory location again. And then if we come back to the environment variables and we do another new and we paste that in like so, we have now put the 3 directory locations for Miniconda that we need to add to our environment variable. So we can now click OK on that, and then close down the system properties. And if you want, you can also close down the system settings. Now we just need to initialize Conda. So to do that, if we come back to File Explorer, and we will copy this script location again. It should still be in our clipboard, but just to make sure it is, we will copy it again, and then we will come to search, and we will type cmd, and then we will run it as administrator, and then we will just paste the directory location, and then after script, we will type \conda space init for init, and now we've typed that. If we now press enter, we will now let it initialize Conda. So there we go, it's now initialized. So now to check it's installed, we will just do conda space dash version and press enter. That was just a typo there from me. It is conda dash dash version, not conda dash version. So there we go, as you can see it is also installed. So we can close down the command prompt again. And we now just need to download the GitHub repository. So if we come back to Chrome, this is the URL of the GitHub repository that we're going to be using. So if you want, you can copy this, and then we can come to search and open up another command prompt. And this time we're going to clone the repository. So we're going to type git space clone, and then I will just paste that URL. If you want, you can manually type it out. And as I've pasted the URL, I will just need to do .git on the end of it. And now we put the GitHub repository down. If we now press enter, it should now clone it to our local area. So there we go, it's now cloned it. So if we now close down command prompt, and then we come to the default location for it, so that is this PC, then C drive, then users, and then whatever user you're signed in on. So for me, I'm signed in on the PC user on my machine. And then if you look down here at the bottom, we now have this whisperGUI folder. So if we now go inside of here, this is all of the files for whisperGUI. So now we're inside of here, we then want to run the whisper-GUI Windows batch file. So if we double click on that, and it will now check for our installation. And then once it gets to this point here where it's asking us if we want to use the base option or create a new environment, we're going to enter 1 for the recommended create a new environment, and then press enter. And then you want to give your environment a name. I'm going to call it whisperx. You can name this whatever you want, but you do need to remember what you named this environment. And then once you put in your name for it, you then just want to press enter. And now it will try to create the environment. And there you go. Now as you can see, it's had some trouble with the config file. So if it does, all you have to do is just press a key just to close down the command prompt. And then you want to come into the configs file here. Now inside of the configs file, you then want to open the config.json file here. And I will say to always open that with Notepad. So as you can see, it's only managed to create the environment name of the environment. that I created, so that was whisperx. So we're just going to need to add a few lines. So after the end speech mark, we're first just going to do comma, then press enter, and then do a few spaces to get in line again, and then do another speech mark. And then inside the speech mark, we're going to type auto_update, then speech mark again, then colon, then space, then true. So that will just tell it to enable auto updates. And then we want to end that with a comma, as we're going to do another line. So if we now press enter to go down another line, and again we do a few spaces until we're in line again, and then do another speech mark. And this time we want to specify our language, so we're going to type language, then speech mark, then colon, then space, then speech mark, then the 2-letter abbreviation for your language. So for example, for English, it will be EN, and then speech mark. And now if you're using an NVIDIA GPU that you want to try and use GPU acceleration with, you should be able to save this config file as it is now. But if you're trying to use a system that doesn't have a supported graphics card, like I am, you want to add this next line. So as we're adding another line, again, we're going to need to do comma, then press enter, and then do a few spaces to get in line again, and then do speech mark, and then type GPU_support, then speech mark, then colon, then space, and then false, like so. So now if I just save this config file, and I close it. Now, if you were trying to use GPU acceleration, I will just quickly show you the commands that I believe you should need to run in addition. So this is only if you were trying to use CUDA with an NVIDIA GPU, you would also need to run this command, so pip install torch, space torch, vision, space torch, audio, space -- index -- URL, space https://download.py torch.org/whl/cu121, and then you would press enter. Now, as I don't have an NVIDIA GPU installed, I do not have a dedicated GPU at all installed, I'm not going to run this command. If you did, I believe that's the command you would want to run to install the torch version that you need. And then once you've done that, if you wanted to verify the GPU was detected, all you would do is type python space -c space speech mark import space torch semicolon space print open bracket torch.cuda.is_available open bracket, close bracket, and then close it with a speech mark. And if you pressed enter on that, if that returned true, then that would tell you that CUDA was working. If it was false, then CUDA wasn't working and you would have to investigate that. Now again, that's only if you're trying to use an NVIDIA GPU with CUDA that you would need to even run this command. So now we've gone over that, we now just need to get on with finishing up setting up our environment. So if you come back to search again and we do cmd and open command prompt back up, so we now need to start up and get inside of the environment that we created. So to do that, we're going to type conda space activate space and then whatever you named your environment. So for me, I named it whisperx. And if I now press enter, it should now start creating the environment and go inside of it. So as you can see, we're now inside of our whisperx environment, and inside of here we need to do pip space install space gradio, and then press enter, and it will now start trying to install gradio. And there we go, gradio has installed. Now the next thing we need to install in our environment is whisperx. So to do that, we're going to type pip space install space whisperx, and then press enter. And there we go, whisperx has finally finished installing. So now we can close down this command prompt, and we will come back into our Whisper GUI folder, and we will just open a command prompt in this directory. So if we just click in the directory bar and we just type cmd and then press enter, that will just quickly open it up in the Whisper GUI. So now we're just going to try auto-launching the Whisper GUI. So to do that again, we need to start our environment. So we're going to do conda space activate space and then our environment. So for me, that is whisperx, and then press enter. So now we've started up and entered our environment. We're now just going to type python space main.py space -- auto launch, and then press enter. So it should now be trying to start up whisperx and should then create a local web page that it will then direct us to for the GUI. So if we just give it a little bit of time to start up, and there we go, it's now started up. So now we will just quickly close these down again, and to stop it from running, you then just want to close down the window that you launched it in. So if we just close that down, that should then stop it. Now to make it quicker to launch rather than having to run those commands manually each time, we're now just going to come back into our whisperx UI folder and we're going to right click and do new and then text document. Now I would recommend you turn on file name extensions just so you make sure you name this file correctly. So if you come to view and then show and then make sure file name extensions are on, you can then see the file name extension of the file. So we're going to double click in this and we're going to rename the file. So you can call this whatever you want, but I'm going to call it start, and then it needs to end with the prefix .bat for bat, and then press enter, and then say yes to changing its file name extension, and we then want to shift right click on our bat file, and then click edit. And then inside of the notepad, I'm then going to type the following, so at echo space off, then come down a line and do echo space starting space whisperx space please space wait. Now these two lines aren't necessary, they're just going to give a bit of feedback when we launch the bat file, just so that we can tell that it's running. And then if I now come down a line, these next two lines are important, so we just need to do call space conda space activate space and then the name of our environment. So again, for me that is whisperx. So just like before when we manually created our environment, this will instead create the environment when the bat file is run. And if we now do enter and come down to the next line, and we then want to type python space main.py space -- auto launch. And now we've done that, we can now just save the file. And I've just realized I've got a bit of a typo as I've mistyped whisperx. So there we go. So if we now just save the file. So now if we try to run this bat file that we've created inside of the whisperx UI folder, it should hopefully automatically launch Whisper once we double click on it. So as you can see, it's showing the text that we entered, and it should now be trying to create the environment and should then launch it once it's done. So if we just give it a bit of time to start up again, and there you go, as you can see, it has successfully launched the web page. So if we just close down the command prompt again and we get rid of this tab, I'm now just going to make it so it's easy to launch the program when we need it. So to do that, I'm just going to create a shortcut to this start bat file. Now you can do this wherever you want, but I'm going to create the shortcut on the desktop. So if I come to the desktop and I right click, and then I do new, and then shortcut, and then you want to specify the location of where the file is that you want to go to. So we're doing a shortcut to this start bat file. So I will just copy the directory location, then paste it in there, and then click browse. And then under the whisperx UI folder, I then want to click on the start bat file, and then click OK. Then click next, and then you can type whatever you want the shortcut to be called. I'm going to call mine start whisperx, and then click finish. Now if you want, you can also change the icon of the shortcut. So if you just right click on it, then go to properties, then click change icon, and then click OK. You can then choose from these default icons, or you can look at making your own icon. But I won't be going over that. Let's just say I select the MSN icon for it, and then I click apply. And there we go, that's now been applied. You don't have to change the icon if you don't want, you can leave it as is. So now in theory, if I double click this shortcut, that should then run this start bat file that we have inside of here, and should start up the whisperx UI. So if I double click on it, and then we just let it try to start up like so. And there we go, it successfully started up and has opened up the web page for it. Now as you can see, this is just the IP address that it has created it on, and the port, so this is running locally on your machine, and it doesn't actually require the internet. So don't think just because it's in a browser it's using the internet. No, it isn't, it's running locally on your machine. So now I'll just play you the example file that I have here. This is a test, nothing but a transcription test. So that is the audio file I'm just going to be testing it with. So if I now come back into the browser, and then you can either click here to upload the file, or you can grab your file and drop it in like so. So once you have your file selected, you then want to select the model that you want to use for the audio transcription. So by default, it will just automatically choose the base option. Now, as you can see, there are the English specific ones. So if you are doing English transcription, you probably just want to select the English one, unless you want to use some of these larger models. Now, the basic rule of thumb is the tiny one will be the fastest, but will be the least accurate. And then as you go up in size, the more accurate it should be, but the longer it will take. Now I've found both the base English and the medium English seem to do quite well, so I will just select the medium English for this test. And now we've selected our model, if I now just click Start Transcription, it will now start transcribing the audio file that we selected. So as you can see, it's telling you it's processing. And whilst it's processing, if you want to see the percentage, all you have to do is open up your command prompt and you should be able to see what it is currently doing. So as you can see at the minute, it's currently loading the model. And now it's finished loading the model, it's loaded up the audio, and it's now starting the transcription. And there we go, as you can see, it's already finished doing the transcription, and it's now just finishing up. And there we go, as you can see, it's done. So back on our GUI, as you can see, it's put what was transcribed, and that is exactly what was in that audio clip, and it also does timestamps down here. Now, whilst also providing the output in the GUI here, it also by default saves it to the output folder inside of the Whisper GUI. So if you come to the Whisper GUI folder and then come into the outputs, as you can see, there is a folder of today's date, and then each transcription will increase in number. So if we did another transcription, that would be 0001, I believe. But as that was the first transcription that we've done for this session, it has named it 000. So if you come inside of it, you get both a timestamp JSON file and then a transcription text file. So if we double click on that, as you can see, there is the transcription. So if you just need the text file, you can copy it straight from there, or you can select what's inside of here and copy it to your clipboard. Now, if you want to change this output location, so where the transcriptions get saved to, I will first just delete the folder inside of here as I don't need that anymore. And I will close down the GUI and close down the program. So if we want to edit the output, all we have to do is we have to edit this main.py file. So if we shift right click on the file and then come to edit with idle and edit it with idle. Now inside of the code here, we now just need to do Control F and search for outputs, as that was the default location. And as you can see, the outputs location is set here. So this is on line 237 that you can see here. This is where it sets the output directory for the transcriptions. So if you want to change it to a different directory, all you have to do is get the directory location. So for example, if I want to change it to the desktop, if I click on the desktop and then I copy the address, and then I come back to my Python file, and I then change what is within the speech marks here. So I change it from outputs to the directory location that I copied. Now, because backslashes are special characters in Python, you need to double them up. So in between each of your directories, instead of it being a single backslash, you need to do a double backslash. And for the backslashes after the colon of your drive, you need to do 4 of them. So as you can see, we have 4 backslashes here, and then 2 backslashes between each directory level. So if we now just do Control S to save this, and we close down the Python file, and we now try and start whisperx up again, and now it's started up, I will just bring my audio file in again. And this time, I guess I will try with the base English model. So if I now click Start Transcription to tell it to start again, and then I will just come to the command prompt just to monitor it. You do not need to if you don't want to. It just gives you more of an idea of what's going on. And there you go. As you can see, it's done. And it has transcribed out here. And we will now just check if it's created the folder on the desktop. So there you go. It has now paid attention to the changing directory that we made to the main.py file. So the edit that I just made here has taken effect, and it has now saved the transcription to the desktop, as that's the directory that I specified. And then if I come inside, as you can see, it has the transcription file for that session here, and there we go. So that's as simple as it gets. If you want to get rid of the file that you put in there, you can just click X and you can do another audio file. Now you will have to play about with your types of audio files, just finding out which model works best for you. Again, the simpler the model, the faster it will be, but the less accurate it will also likely be. And it's not a solid rule. Some models will do better for certain types of audio, and some models won't do as well. So guys, hopefully that worked for you. If you liked the video, don't forget the like button. If you dislike it, hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you another time. Bye.